Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Ivan Jue. I teach international business at Cerritos College. Today, we will discuss one of the most important topics in international business: ethics and social responsibility. As companies expand globally, they face different cultures, laws, values, and expectations. A business practice considered acceptable in one country may be viewed as unethical or illegal in another. Because of this, multinational corporations must carefully manage ethical behavior and social responsibility across borders. So, with that, let's begin. So, by the end of this lecture, you should understand these learning objectives. In essence, these objectives should help you think about the following: what ethics means in international business, how culture affects ethical behavior, how companies manage ethics globally, what corporate social responsibility or CSR is, how firms balance profits, people, and the environment, and the major international laws governing ethical behavior. Okay, so what are ethics? Ethics refers to a person's belief about what is right or wrong. Ethical behavior follows accepted social norms. Unethical behavior violates accepted social norms. Here are some examples. Returning lost money. That's generally considered ethical. Stealing office supplies. Generally considered unethical. However, ethical judgments are not always universal. People's views about what is right or wrong are influenced by personal beliefs, culture, society, and specific situations. Here's a breakdown of each point. Number one, individuals have their own personal belief system. Everyone develops personal values based on family, religion, education, experiences, and personality. So one person may think a behavior is acceptable while another person may think it is unethical. As an example, one employee may believe taking office supplies home is harmless while another sees it as stealing. Number two, people from the same culture often share similar ethical beliefs. Culture strongly influences ethical standards. People raised in the same country or society often have similar ideas about honesty, fairness, authority, teamwork, and responsibility. As an example, in some cultures, gift giving in business is normal and respectable. In others, it may be viewed as bribery. This is especially important in international business because managers work with people from many cultures. Number three, individuals may rationalize behavior based on circumstances. People sometimes justify questionable actions because of pressure or special situations. This is called rationalization. Here are some examples of what people may say. Everyone else is doing it. I had no choice. It helps the company survive. So even people who know something is wrong may try to explain it away. Number four, individuals may deviate from their own beliefs. Sometimes people act against their own ethical standards because of stress, pressure from bosses, fear of losing a job, competition, or financial incentives. As an example, a manager who normally values honesty may hide bad financial results to protect the company. This shows that circumstances can influence ethical behavior. Number five, ethical values are strongly affected by national cultures and customs. Different countries have different laws, traditions, social expectations, and business practices. Companies operating globally must understand these differences. As an example, attitudes towards labor rights, environmental responsibility, corruption, or gender equality may vary across countries. However, multinational companies still need to maintain core ethical standards. So, how do ethics in international business become influenced by the following relationships? The organization, the employees, and the cultural context in which they operate. The arrows show that all of these influence each other continuously. The main idea here is that ethical behavior in international business is not determined by only one factor. Instead, ethics are shaped by how companies treat employees, how employees behave toward the company, how both interact with customers, governments, and society, and the culture of the country or region. Number one, behavior of organization towards employees. This refers to how a company treats its workers. As an example, fair wages, safe working conditions, equal opportunity, respect for diversity, honest communication, and work-life balance. As an ethical example, a multinational company provides anti-discrimination policies, fair promotion systems, and employee benefits globally. As an unethical example, a company exploits workers in another country because labor laws are weak. Number two, behavior of employees towards the organization. This refers to how employees behave towards the company. Examples are honesty, loyalty, respect for company policies, avoiding fraud or corruption, protecting confidential information. An ethical example of this would be employees that report financial misconduct or bribery. An unethical example would be an employee stealing company information or accepting bribes. Number three, behavior of employees in an organization towards other economic agents. Economic agents means outside stakeholders such as customers, suppliers, governments, competitors, investors, and society. This is about external business ethics. Examples would be honest advertising, fair competition, environmental responsibility, anti-corruption practices, ethical sourcing. As an ethical example, a company refusing to pay bribes to win contracts overseas, while an unethical example would be a company knowingly sells unsafe products in developing countries. Number four, cultural context, or the center circle. This is the most important part of the slide. Different cultures influence what people consider acceptable, respectful, fair, or ethical. The culture affects management style, negotiation behavior, employee expectations, communication, and business practices. Examples of cultural differences in ethics: gift giving. In some countries, gift giving is viewed as relationship building, while in others, it may be considered bribery. As an example, in Japan, business gifts may be culturally normal. However, in the United States, expensive gifts may violate company ethics rules. The power distance. In high power distance cultures, employees may not question managers, but in low power distance cultures, employees are encouraged to challenge ideas openly. This affects whistleblowing, reporting unethical behavior, and leadership ethics. Why does this matter in international business? Global companies operate across many cultures. A practice that is ethical in one country may be unethical, illegal, or socially unacceptable elsewhere. So managers must balance local cultural norms with global ethical standards. So a company's ethics may not only be about profits or customers. They're also about how the organization treats its workers worldwide. Ethical businesses should treat employees fairly, respectfully, and consistently, even when local laws or cultural practices differ. Number one, hiring practices. This refers to how companies recruit and select employees. Ethical issues include avoiding discrimination based on gender, race, religion, age, nationality, providing equal opportunity, hiring based on qualifications and merit, avoiding corruption or favoritism, such as hiring only relatives or political connections. The international challenge. Different countries may have different social norms or labor laws. For example, some countries may tolerate gender discrimination more than others. Some cultures emphasize family or personal connections in hiring. And multinational companies should still promote fairness and equal opportunity globally. Number 2, career development. This means helping employees grow professionally. The ethical responsibilities here are providing training and education, offering fair promotion opportunities, supporting employee growth regardless of nationality or background, avoiding favoritism towards headquarters employees over local workers. As an example, an international company should not reserve all management positions for expatriates while denying local employees advancement opportunities. Why does this matter? Employees should feel valued and have opportunities to succeed. Number 3, compensation and benefits. This refers to wages, bonuses, healthcare, vacation, retirement plans, and other rewards. Ethical concern here is that paying fair wages, avoiding exploitation in low-income countries, providing safe working conditions and benefits, ensuring workers can maintain a reasonable standard of living. The international concern is that companies may be tempted to pay extremely low wages, avoid benefits, or take advantage of weak labor laws in developing countries. The ethical expectation is that even if local laws allow low standards, ethical companies often choose higher standards for worker welfare. Number 4, workers' rights and dignity. This focuses on respecting employees as human beings. This includes safe working conditions, freedom from harassment or abuse, respect for privacy and human rights, freedom of association, such as labor unions, reasonable work hours, protection from child labor or forced labor. The cross-cultural challenge here is that some countries may have weaker labor protections or different views on worker rights. The ethical principle here is that organizations should protect basic human dignity everywhere they operate. Here are the ethical responsibilities employees have toward the organization that they work for, especially in international and cross-cultural business environments. The main idea here is that ethics is a two-way relationship. Organizations must treat employees ethically, and employees must also behave ethically towards the company. So number 1, conflict of interest. A conflict of interest happens when an employee's personal interests interfere with the company's interests. As an example, awarding contracts to a family member's company, accepting bribes or gifts from suppliers, using company resources for personal business, working for a competitor secretly. The international business challenge here is that in some cultures, gift giving and personal relationships are common business practices. However, these practices can sometimes breach cross-ethical boundaries. The ethical expectation is that employees should act in the company's best interests, avoid favoritism, disclose potential conflicts, and follow company policies. Number 2, secrecy and confidentiality. Employees often have access to sensitive information. This may include trade secrets, customer data, financial information, product designs, business strategies. The ethical responsibility here is that employees should protect confidential information and not share it improperly. As examples of unethical behavior, leaking company secrets, sharing client information, stealing intellectual property, discussing confidential projects publicly. The international issue here is that different countries may have different privacy laws and data protection standards, but ethical organizations expect confidentiality everywhere. Why does it matter? Protecting information helps maintain trust, competitive advantage, and legal compliance. Number 3, honesty. Honesty is one of the most important ethical values in business. Employees should tell the truth, report accurate information, avoid fraud, avoid lying to customers or managers, and admit mistakes when they happen. As examples for being ethical, accurately reporting expenses, honest accounting, truthful communication with clients, versus unethical, which would be falsifying reports, hiding problems, misleading customers, manipulating financial results. For the international challenge, business communication styles differ across cultures. Some cultures communicate very differently. They may communicate very directly. Others are more indirect to preserve harmony. However, ethical honesty still requires integrity and truthfulness. Here are the ethical relationships between a company, its employees, and other important groups involved in business activities, especially in international and cross-cultural settings. These groups are called economic agents because they affect or are affected by the organization's actions. The main idea here is that a business does not operate alone. Its ethical responsibilities extend to many stakeholders, including customers, competitors, investors, suppliers, distributors, and labor organizations. In global business, ethical challenges become more complex because laws, cultures, and business norms differ across countries. The first one, customers. Customers expect companies to treat them fairly and honestly. Ethical responsibilities include providing safe products, truthful advertising, fair pricing, protecting customer privacy, and honoring warranties and promises. The unethical examples would be false advertising, selling dangerous products, misleading customers, hiding product defects. The international issue here is that some countries have weaker consumer protection laws, but ethical companies should still maintain high standards globally. Number 2, competitors. Businesses should compete fairly. Ethical competition means avoiding industrial espionage, avoiding false rumors about competitors, respecting intellectual property, and following antitrust and competition laws. Unethical examples include bribing competitor employees, stealing trade secrets, price fixing, and collusion. The international challenge here is that business competition practices vary across cultures, but fairness and integrity remain important ethical standards. Number 3, stockholders. Stockholders or shareholders invest money in the company. Ethical responsibilities toward stockholders are accurate financial reporting, transparency, responsible management, and protecting investor interests. Unethical examples include hiding financial losses, accounting fraud, insider trading, or misleading investors. Why is this important? A trust with investors is essential for business success. Number 4, suppliers. Suppliers provide materials, products, or services to the company. Ethical relationships involve fair contracts, timely payments, honest negotiations, and avoiding corruption or favoritism. The unethical examples include forcing unfair prices, bribery, exploiting small suppliers, or breaking agreements unfairly. The international issue here is that supply chains often involve developing countries where labor or environmental standards may differ. Number 5, dealers. Dealers and distributors help sell products to customers. Ethical expectations include fair treatment, honest communication, respecting contracts, and avoiding manipulation or coercion. As an example, a company should not unfairly favor one dealer or another without reason. The international challenge here is that distribution systems differ worldwide, so companies must manage relationships ethically across cultures. And number 6, labor unions. Labor unions represent workers' interests. Ethical responsibilities include respecting workers' rights, engaging in fair negotiations, avoiding retaliation, and maintaining safe working conditions. Unethical behavior would be union suppression, intimidation, and refusing fair bargaining. International issue here is that some countries strongly support unions while others restrict them. Ethical companies should still respect basic worker rights. Managing ethics across borders means creating clear standards and a strong ethical environment so employees know what behavior is acceptable, what is unethical, and how to make responsible decisions globally. This shows 4 major tools companies use to manage ethics. Number 1, written guidelines. These are basic written instructions about acceptable behavior. They may include anti-bribery rules, gift policies, workplace conduct, anti-discrimination policies, and reporting procedures. The purpose here is that written guidelines help employees understand expectations clearly. As an example, a company may state employees cannot accept expensive gifts from suppliers. Confidential information must be protected. Harassment is prohibited. The international importance here is that employees in different countries may have different cultural norms, so written guidance creates consistency. Number 2, formal codes of ethics. A code of ethics is a formal document that outlines the company's ethical principles and values. It usually covers honesty, integrity, fairness, respect, legal compliance, and social responsibility. The purpose here is that it provides a framework for ethical decision making. As an example, many multinational companies have global codes prohibiting corruption, bribery, child labor, insider trading. The international challenge here is that practices accepted in one culture may violate global ethical standards. As an example, gift giving may be normal in some countries, but large gifts could be considered bribery elsewhere. The code helps employees navigate these differences. Organizational practices. These are the actual systems and actions companies use to support ethics. Examples include ethics training programs, whistleblower hotlines, internal audits, compliance departments, disciplinary procedures, ethical leadership. The important idea here is that ethics must be practiced, not just written down. As an example, if a company says bribery is prohibited but managers ignore violations, the ethical system fails. The international importance is that companies must monitor ethical behavior consistently across global offices and supply chains. Number 4, corporate cultures. Corporate culture refers to the shared values, beliefs, and behaviors inside an organization. A strong ethical culture encourages honesty, accountability, respect, transparency, and responsible decision making. The ethical culture is influenced by leadership behavior, management attitudes, employee treatment, and reward systems. The example here is that if leaders act ethically, employees are more likely to do the same. If leadership tolerates unethical behavior for profits, unethical conduct may spread. As again, the international challenge here is that corporate culture must unite employees from many different national cultures under shared ethical values. So a company's ethical standards should stay consistent worldwide, but the training must also respect local cultures, languages, laws, and business practices. So let's go through each of these. Number 1, globally consistent. This means the company should have the same core ethical values everywhere. Examples would be no bribery, no fraud, respect for human rights, honest financial reporting, anti-discrimination policies. Even if employees work in different countries, the company expects everyone to follow the same ethical principles. Why does this matter? It creates one global company culture, protects company reputation, prevents legal problems, and ensures fairness across countries. As an example, a U.S. company operating in China, Brazil, and Germany still prohibits bribery everywhere under laws like the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, or FCPA. Number 2, tailor to local context. Although the ethical standards are global, the training examples and situations should match local realities. Different countries may have different business customs, different communication styles, different cultural expectations, and different legal systems. So why does this matter? Employees understand ethics better when the examples feel relevant to their own environment. As an example, a gift to a government official, in some countries, gift giving is culturally common, while in others it may be viewed as bribery. The training should explain what local customs exist and where the ethical and legal boundaries are. Number 3, localized. This means adapting the training itself for local employees. Localization may include translating materials into local languages, using local case studies, adjusting teaching methods, considering literacy and technology access, reflecting local workplace norms. As an example, an ethics training program in Japan may use Japanese language, include Japanese business scenarios, use culturally appropriate communication styles. The key idea here is that ethics does not happen automatically. Organizations must actively manage and reinforce ethical behavior across all countries where they operate. Let's go through these 3. Number 1, management of ethical behavior. This means leadership and managers are responsible for guiding employees towards ethical conduct. Managers help shape ethics by setting expectations, creating policies, enforcing rules fairly, leading by example, rewarding ethical behavior, and disciplining unethical actions. The important concept here is that employees often follow the behavior they see from leaders. If management acts ethically, employees are more likely to act ethically. If management ignores unethical conduct, unethical behavior can spread throughout the company. The international challenge is that managers in multinational companies must handle ethical issues across different legal systems, cultural values, and business customs. As an example, a manager may need to decide whether a gift in another country is a cultural courtesy or an unethical bribe. Number 2, organizational practices. These are the formal systems and procedures companies use to support ethics. Examples include ethics training, compliance programs, whistleblower systems, anti-corruption controls, audits and monitoring, reporting procedures, and performance evaluations tied to ethical conduct. The purpose here is for organizational practices that turn ethical principles into everyday business behavior. An example would be a multinational company that may require annual ethics certification, train employees on anti-bribery laws, and investigate misconduct reports globally. So why is this important? Without systems and enforcement, ethical policies may exist only on paper. And number 3, corporate culture. Corporate culture refers to the shared values, attitudes, and behaviors within a company. It influences how employees behave, how decisions are made, and what actions are considered acceptable. Strong ethical cultures promote integrity, honesty, accountability, fairness, and respect. Weak or unethical cultures may encourage corruption, dishonesty, excessive pressure for profits, and ignoring misconduct. An example here would be if a company rewards employees only for sales numbers, workers may feel pressure to behave unethically to meet targets. But if a company rewards both performance and ethical conduct, employees may more likely to make responsible decisions. The cross-cultural importance is that in international business, employees come from many cultures and different beliefs and practices. A strong corporate culture helps to create common ethical standards, consistent behavior, and shared organizational values worldwide. So this explains the idea of corporate social responsibility, or CSR, and how businesses should share profits with responsibilities to society and the environment, especially in international and cross-cultural business. So what is CSR? CSR is the set of obligations a corporation undertakes to protect and enhance the society in which it functions. So that means companies are expected to do more than just make money. They should also contribute positively to society, avoid harming people or the environment, and operate responsibly and ethically. The main idea of CSR is for a socially responsible company to consider the impact of its decisions on employees, customers, communities, governments, and the environment. CSR is especially important in international business because multinational companies often operate in countries with different labor standards, environmental regulations, and social expectations. The triple bottom line. What is this? This is where traditionally companies focus mainly on one bottom line, profit. The triple bottom line expands this idea by saying companies should measure success in three areas. A, the economic mission, profit. Businesses must still maintain financially successful, so that includes earning profits, creating jobs, growing the company, providing value to investors and customers. The important point here is that CSR does not mean ignoring profitability. A company must be economically sustainable to survive. B, the natural environment, or the planet in this case. Companies should protect the environment and reduce negative environmental impact. Examples include reducing pollution, conserving energy, minimizing waste, using sustainable materials, and lowering carbon emissions. The international issue here is that some countries have weak environmental laws, but ethical companies often choose higher standards globally. As an example, a factory may illegally dump waste in one country, but a socially responsible company would avoid harming the environment anyway. C, general social welfare. This concerns people. Companies should improve society and support human well-being. So that includes fair labor practices, safe working conditions, community support, human rights protection, diversity and inclusion, and ethical treatment of workers. As an example, a multinational company may support local schools, provide fair wages, prohibit child labor, and invest in local communities. The cross-cultural importance here is that different countries have different views about environmental protection, worker rights, and corporate responsibilities. CSR helps multinational companies maintain ethical standards globally, even when local regulations differ. There are two different views about what a company's main economic responsibility should be in society and international business. The key question is, who should a company primarily serve? In this case, the slide compares the shareholder model and the stakeholder model. Number one, the shareholder model. The shareholder model says that a company's primary responsibility is to maximize profits for its owners, the shareholders. The main idea here is that businesses exist mainly to generate profits, increase stock value, and provide financial returns to investors. Under this model, managers focus on efficiency, revenue growth, cost reduction, and shareholder wealth. The supporters believe that if the companies are profitable, investors benefit, jobs are created, and economies grow. As an example, a corporation may prioritize decisions that increase quarterly earnings and stock price. However, the criticism of the shareholder model would be that critics argue that focusing only on profits can lead to environmental damage, worker exploitation, unethical business practices, and short term decision making. So, as an example, a company may move factories to countries with very low labor costs, even if working conditions are poor. Number two, the stakeholder model. The stakeholder model says that businesses should consider the interests of all groups affected by the company, not just shareholders. Stakeholders include employees, customers, suppliers, communities, governments, the environment, and investors. The main idea here is that a company has broader social responsibilities beyond profit. Under this model, managers try to balance profitability, ethics, social welfare, and environmental sustainability. Primary stakeholders. These are groups directly essential to the company's survival. As examples, shareholders, employees, customers, suppliers. Without these groups, the business cannot operate successfully. Secondary stakeholders. These groups are indirectly affected by the company. As examples, local communities, media, activist groups, governments, labor unions, environmental organizations. Even though they may not directly participate in daily business operations, they can strongly influence a company's reputation and success. So, what is the cross-cultural and international importance? Well, in global business, companies often face pressure to balance profitability, cultural expectations, labor rights, environmental concerns, and social responsibilities. Different countries may emphasize different models. Some economies strongly emphasize shareholder profits. Others place more importance on social welfare and stakeholder interests. Here we have a case of where corporate social responsibility applies to environmental protection and sustainability in international business. The main idea here is that companies have responsibilities not only to make profits, but also to protect the natural environment while operating globally. So let's start with enforcing environmental laws. Governments create environmental laws to protect the air, water, land, wildlife, and public health. These laws may regulate pollution, waste disposal, carbon emissions, use of hazardous materials, deforestation, and energy usage. The international challenge is that environmental laws vary greatly between countries. Some countries have strict environmental regulations, actively enforcing pollution controls, while others may have weak laws, limited enforcement, or fewer environmental protections. The ethical concern in international business is that multinational companies may sometimes move operations to countries with weaker environmental rules to reduce costs. This can create problems such as pollution, unsafe waste disposal, environmental destruction, harm to local communities. The ethical expectation is that responsible companies should follow high environmental standards everywhere, not just where laws are strict. Okay, so corporate efforts. This refers to voluntary actions that companies take to protect environment and support sustainability. Examples of corporate environmental efforts are reducing carbon emissions, recycling programs, using renewable energy, reducing waste, conserving water, sustainable sourcing, eco-friendly packaging, and investing in green technology. The purpose here is for corporate sustainability efforts to help companies reduce environmental harm, improve reputation, meet customer expectations, and support long-term global sustainability. So what is sustainability? Sustainability means meeting current needs without harming the ability of future generations to meet their needs. A sustainable company tries to balance economic success, environmental protection, and social responsibility. So, what is the cross cultural and international importance? Well, for environmental priorities, they differ across countries. As an example, developed countries may emphasize climate change and emissions reduction. Developing countries may prioritize economic growth and jobs. Global companies must balance the local economic realities, environmental responsibilities, international sustainability expectations. This shows how companies demonstrate social responsibility in international and cross cultural business environments by contributing to the overall well being of society and not just focusing on profits. The main idea here is that businesses are increasingly expected to improve society in the countries where they operate. This is part of the corporate social responsibility, ethical business behavior, and sustainable global business practices. So let's start with making the charitable contributions. Companies donate money, products, or services to help communities. Examples would be disaster relief donations, supporting local charities, food and clothing drives, and scholarships for students. So, why do companies do this? This would help communities in need, build goodwill and trust, improve company reputation, and demonstrate ethical leadership. As an example, Coca-Cola donating clean drinking water systems to developing countries. Supporting the arts and museums. Businesses often sponsor cultural institutions and artistic programs. As an example, funding museums, sponsoring concerts and festivals, supporting public art projects, and preserving cultural heritage. So why does this matter? This helps to protect culture and history. It strengthens local communities, encourages creativity and education. The international importance is that for cross-cultural settings, supporting local culture shows respect for the host country. A good example of this would be a multinational company sponsoring a traditional cultural festival in Japan or funding museum exhibits in Europe. Funding public health and education. Companies may invest in programs that improve health and learning. Examples would be building schools, providing educational technology, funding medical research, vaccination programs, employee wellness initiatives. Why does this matter? It helps to create healthier and more educated societies. It improves workforce quality. It also helps with long-term economic development. As an example, this would be Microsoft providing technology and digital training to schools in developing countries. And finally, confronting political and social issues. Modern companies are increasingly expected to speak out or take action on major social problems. Examples would be major climate change, human rights, diversity and inclusion, gender equality, racial justice, and labor rights. But why is this difficult internationally? Different countries may have different political systems, different cultural beliefs, different expectations about corporate involvement. A company must balance ethical responsibility, local sensitivities, and business risks. As an example, a company refusing to use suppliers involved in forced labor, even if local laws are weaker. This slide shows a spectrum of how companies approach social responsibility, ranging from the least responsible behavior to the most responsible behavior. The idea here is that different organizations respond to social responsibility in different ways. Some companies only do the minimum required, while others actively try to improve society and the environment. The responsibility continuum. The line moves from least responsible to the most responsible. The four approaches are obstructionist stance, defensive stance, accommodative stance, proactive stance. The obstructive stance, or the least responsible. This is the lowest level of social responsibility. The characteristics are the company avoids responsibility, may deny wrongdoing, tries to hide unethical behavior, focuses only on profits, may ignore laws or ethical standards. Typical attitude would be do whatever increases profits. Examples would include hiding pollution, covering up product defects, exploiting workers, and misguiding regulators. The international concern here is that in countries with weak enforcement, unethical firms may take advantage of poor regulations. Defensive stance. This approach does only what is legally required. Characteristics would be obeys the law but does not voluntarily go beyond minimum standards. Responds mainly to pressure from regulators or the public. Typical attitude: we will meet legal requirements but no more. As an example, a company reduces pollution only because environmental laws require it. The difference from obstructionist: defensive companies comply with rules, obstructionist companies may resist or violate them. Accommodative stance. This approach accepts broader social responsibility in response to stakeholder expectations. The characteristics are trying to balance profits and social concerns. Responds positively to ethical expectations. Often cooperating with communities and stakeholders. The typical attitude would be, we will do what society expects. Examples include improving labor conditions, supporting local charities, adopting sustainability programs when encouraged. The important point is that a company usually reacts when concerns are raised rather than leading change independently. And then the proactive stance, or the most responsible. This is the highest level of social responsibility. Characteristics include a company actively seeking ways to improve society, which means going beyond legal requirements and integrating ethics and CSR into business strategy. The typical attitude here would be, we want to lead in social responsibility. Examples include investing heavily in renewable energy, voluntarily in reducing emissions, supporting global human rights initiatives, and creating sustainable supply chains. Proactive companies anticipate problems, prevent harm before regulations require action, and often become industry leaders in CSR. The cross-cultural and international importance of this would be in global business, laws and ethical standards differ between countries, but stakeholders increasingly expect multinational companies to behave responsibly everywhere. Companies with proactive approaches often gain stronger reputations, build customer trust, attract employees and investors, and reduce long-term risks. Companies manage social responsibility by ensuring compliance in three important areas: legal compliance, ethical compliance, and philanthropic compliance. Main idea here is that responsible companies operating internationally must comply not only with laws but also with ethical expectations and social contributions. The formal dimensions. Formal dimensions means the structured and organized ways companies manage responsibility and compliance across global operations. These dimensions help companies follow rules, maintain ethical standards, and contribute positively to society. Legal compliance. Legal compliance means obeying the laws and regulations of the countries where the company operates. Examples include labor laws, tax laws, environmental regulations, anti-bribery laws, trade regulations, and data privacy laws. The international challenge here is that laws differ from country to country. For example, labor protections may be strict in one country but weaker in another. The ethical concern here is that a company should not exploit weak legal systems simply because it can. A multinational company must comply with workplace safety laws, import-export rules, anti-corruption laws like the U.S. Foreign Corruption Practices Act, or FCPA. Ethical compliance. Ethical compliance means behaving according to moral principles and company values, even beyond legal requirements. The important idea here is that something can be legal but still unethical. Ethical compliance includes honesty, fairness, integrity, respect for human rights, avoiding corruption, and fair treatment of employees and customers. An example here would be a company may legally pay very low wages in a developing country, but ethical compliance may encourage paying fair wages and improving conditions. The international importance here is that different cultures may have different norms, but multinational companies often apply global ethical standards across all locations. And then philanthropic compliance. Philanthropic compliance refers to voluntary contributions companies make to improve society and communities. This is the highest level of social responsibility because it goes beyond both law and ethics. Examples would be charitable donations, scholarships, disaster relief, community development, educational support, environmental projects. The purpose would be to create positive social impact and demonstrate corporate citizenship. An example would be a multinational company that may fund local schools, support healthcare programs, donate during natural disasters, and sponsor sustainability initiatives. Here are the informal ways companies manage social responsibility and ethical behavior in international business. Unlike formal rules and policies, these informal dimensions focus on leadership behavior, workplace culture, and how organizations treat employees who report wrongdoing. The main idea here is that a company's real ethical behavior is often shaped more by people and culture than by written policies alone. So let's go through these. Leadership. Leadership plays a major role in shaping ethical and socially responsible behavior. Leaders influence employee behavior, company values, decision making, and organizational priorities. Ethical leaders act honestly, set a good example, encourage integrity, support responsible business practices, and hold employees accountable. The important concept here is that employees often imitate leadership behavior. If leaders behave ethically, ethical culture strengthens. They tolerate unethical actions, then that leads to unethical behavior that will spread. International importance is that in multinational companies, leaders must guide employees across different cultures, legal systems, and social expectations. Good leaders help create consistent ethical standards worldwide. As an example, a global manager refusing bribery, even in countries where corruption is common, demonstrates ethical leadership. Organizational culture. Organizational or corporate culture refers to the shared beliefs, values, and behaviors inside a company. Culture influences how employees behave, how decisions are made, what is considered acceptable. A strong ethical culture encourages honesty, teamwork, fairness, transparency, and accountability. A weak or toxic culture may encourage dishonesty, fear, excessive pressure, and unethical shortcuts. As an example, if a company rewards employees only for profits or sales numbers, employees may ignore ethics or achieve targets. But if a company rewards ethical behavior, teamwork, social responsibility, employees are more likely to act responsibly. So in a cross-cultural challenge in an international business, employees come from different cultural backgrounds. Communication styles and values vary. A strong organizational culture helps unite employees under common ethical principles. And finally, response to whistleblowers. Whistleblowers are employees who report unethical or illegal behavior inside an organization. For example, fraud, corruption, safety violations, discrimination, and environmental violations. Ethical organizations should encourage reporting, investigate concerns fairly, and protect whistleblowers from retaliation. So why does this matter? If employees fear punishment for reporting problems, unethical behavior may continue, scandals may grow, public trust may be damaged. However, companies with strong ethics programs often provide anonymous hotlines, confidential reporting systems, legal protections, and anti-retaliation policies. The international importance is that in some countries, whistleblowing may be culturally discouraged or employees may fear authority. Multinational companies must create safe systems that encourage ethical reporting globally. So, how do companies measure and monitor the effectiveness of their social responsibility and ethical programs in international business? The key idea here is that it is not enough for a company to claim it is socially responsible. It must evaluate whether its actions are actually working. So let's go through these three. Ensure efforts are producing desired benefits. Companies should regularly check whether their social responsibility programs are creating positive results. This means evaluating environmental programs, ethical policies, labor practices, community support, and sustainability initiatives. The questions that companies may ask: are employees being treated fairly? Is pollution being reduced? Are communities benefiting? Are ethical standards improving? As an example, a company that launches a recycling initiative should measure how much waste is reduced, the cost savings, and the environmental impact. Why is this important? Without evaluation, programs may fail, resources may be wasted, or companies may only appear socially responsible without creating real impact. This is sometimes called greenwashing or ethical window dressing. Apply the concept of control to social responsibility. This means companies should manage social responsibility the same way they manage other business operations, through planning, monitoring, measurement, and corrective action. In management, control means comparing actual results to desired goals and making improvements when needed. Companies may use audits, performance metrics, compliance reviews, sustainability reports, employee surveys, or ESG measurements, or environmental social governance. As an example, a multinational company may set goals to reduce carbon emissions by 20%, improve worker safety, increase diversity in leadership. Management then tracks progress and adjusts strategies if goals are not being met. And then evaluating response to instances of questionable legal or ethical conduct. Companies should examine how they react when ethical problems or legal violations occur. This includes fraud, corruption, discrimination, environmental violations, harassment, and financial misconduct. The important question here is, did management respond quickly? Was the issue investigated fairly? Were employees protected? Were corrective actions taken? Was accountability enforced? So why does this matter? A company's true ethical values are often revealed during crises or misconduct situations. A poor response example would be hiding scandals, protecting executives, punishing whistleblowers, or ignoring violations. A strong response example would be transparent investigations, corrective actions, policy improvements, or ethical accountability. So the cross-cultural and international importance of this would be: in global business, ethical expectations vary, legal systems differ, and misconduct may occur across international operations. Companies must consistently evaluate ethics and social responsibility worldwide, not just at headquarters. Here is why managing corporate social responsibility, or CSR, globally is difficult. The main idea is that different countries, governments, markets, and cultures have different expectations about what socially responsible business behavior should look like. As a result, multinational companies often face challenges creating one consistent global CSR strategy. Actors in policy formulation process. These are the major groups that influence CSR policies and expectations. The state. Governments create laws and regulations related to labor standards, environmental protection, taxes, human rights, and consumer protection. The challenge here is that different governments have different priorities and levels of enforcement. As an example, some countries strongly regulate pollution and worker rights. Others have weaker regulations to encourage business investment. The CSR difficulty is that multinational company must decide whether to follow only local laws or apply higher global standards everywhere. The market. The market includes customers, investors, competitors, and economic pressures. Markets influence CSR through consumer expectations, investor demands, competition, and profitability pressures. As an example, customers in some countries strongly prefer environmental friendly products, ethical sourcing, and sustainable businesses. Other markets may focus more on low prices, convenience, and economic growth. The CSR difficulty is that companies must balance profitability, competitiveness, and social responsibility. Civil society. Civil society includes non-governmental organizations, or NGOs, labor unions, activist groups, media, and local communities. These groups often pressure companies to improve labor conditions, reduce pollution, protect human rights, increase transparency. As an example, environmental groups may criticize companies for deforestation, emissions, or unethical supply chains. The CSR difficulty here is that different countries have different levels of activism and public expectations. Stereotypical behaviors in 3 regions of the world. So this is where CSR approaches vary across the world, depending on cultural, economic, and political differences. The Anglo-Saxon approach. This is common in the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia. Characteristics include strong focus on shareholder value and profits, market-driven approach. The CSR often voluntarily rather than government-controlled. Typical belief is that businesses should create profits first and voluntarily contribute to society. Companies may focus heavily on philanthropy and charitable donations. The Asian approach. Common in many Asian countries such as Japan, China, South Korea, Singapore. Characteristics include greater emphasis on harmony, relationships, and collective welfare. Strong role of government in long-term business relationships. The CSR may focus on employee loyalty, community stability, and long-term development. The example here would be companies that may prioritize employee welfare, social harmony, and long-term relationships over short-term profits. The continental European approach. This would be common in countries like Germany, France, the Netherlands, and Scandinavia. Characteristics would be strong government involvement, greater emphasis on stakeholder rights, strong labor protections and environmental standards. Typical belief here will be that businesses have broad responsibilities to society, workers, and the environment. Example would be European companies often face stricter environmental laws, strong labor unions, and greater sustainability expectations. These are the major laws, international agreements, and organizations that regulate ethical behavior and corporate social responsibility in international business. Because companies operate across many countries, governments and international organizations have created rules to reduce corruption, protect workers, and encourage ethical global business practices. The Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, or FCPA. The Foreign Corrupt Practices Act is a U.S. law designed to prevent bribery in international business. The main purpose here is that it prohibits U.S. companies and individuals from bribing foreign government officials to gain business advantages. Examples of illegal actions would be paying officials for contracts, offering gifts to influence government decisions, or hiding bribe payments in accounting records. The FCP also requires accurate accounting records, strong internal controls, and transparent financial reporting. Why is this important? Promotes fair competition and reduces corruption globally. The Bribery Act. The UK Bribery Act is a major anti-corruption law in the United Kingdom. It is considered stricter than the FCPA because it prohibits both public and private bribery. It bans facilitation payments. Companies can be liable if they fail to prevent bribery. The main goal of it is to prevent corruption in international business transactions. As an example, a company can face penalties if employees or agents bribe someone anywhere in the world. The Alien Tort Claims Act. The Alien Tort Claims Act, or also called the Alien Tort Statute, allows foreign citizens to bring lawsuits in U.S. courts for certain violations of international law or human rights. The examples may include forced labor, human rights abuses, environmental harm, and corporate misconduct abroad. So why is this important? It increases pressure on multinational companies to respect human rights globally. The Anti-Bribery Convention of OECD. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development created the Anti-Bribery Convention to encourage countries to criminalize bribery of foreign public officials. The main purpose is to create international cooperation against corruption. The participating countries agree to enforce anti-bribery laws, investigate corruption, punish companies or individuals involved in bribery. The importance that it helps to create more consistent global anti-corruption standards. And then the International Labor Organization, or ILO. The International Labor Organization promotes fair labor practices and worker rights worldwide. The ILO focuses on safe working conditions, fair wages, elimination of child labor, elimination of forced labor, workers' rights, and freedom of association. The importance in CSR is that the ILO helps establish international labor standards for multinational companies. So this is a summary and review of the key concepts from the chapter on ethics and social responsibility in international business. Each question highlights an important topic that you should understand. What are ethics? Ethics are the moral principles and values that guide behavior and decision making. They help determine what is right or wrong, fair or unfair, acceptable or unacceptable. In business, ethics influence how companies and employees treat customers, workers, investors, competitors, and society. An example here would be honesty, fairness, integrity, and respect are ethical values. Distinguish between ethical and unethical behavior. Ethical behavior, actions that are honest, fair, responsible, and respectful. Examples will be truthful advertising, fair wages, protecting customer privacy, obeying laws, and avoiding corruption. Unethical behavior would be actions that violate moral principles or harm others. Examples will be fraud, bribery, discrimination, exploiting workers, pollution, and false advertising. What role does culture play in the formation of ethics? Culture strongly influences ethical beliefs and behaviors. Different cultures may have different views about authority, honesty, gift-giving, competition, worker rights, gender roles, and business relationships. The important idea is that what is considered acceptable in one culture may be viewed as unethical in another. As an example, in some countries, gift-giving is a normal business practice. In others, it may be considered bribery. The challenge for international business is that multinational companies must balance local cultural norms and global ethical standards. So how do organizations attempt to manage ethical behavior across borders? Companies manage ethics internationally through written guidelines, code of ethics, ethics training, leadership, compliance programs, audits, whistleblower systems, and corporate culture. The goal is to create consistent ethical behavior across different countries and cultures. As an example, a multinational company may require anti-bribery training worldwide. What is social responsibility? Social responsibility, or CSR, means a company's obligation to protect society, contribute positively to communities, and minimize harm to people and the environment. A CSR includes fair labor practices, environmental protection, ethical business conduct, community support, and sustainability. The important rule here is that businesses should consider more than profits alone. What is the difference between ethics and social responsibility? Although related, they are different concepts. Ethics, social responsibility, focuses on right and wrong behavior, focuses on a company's obligations to society, focuses and guides decisions and conduct, focuses on products on broader social impact, often concerns individuals and organizations. A simple distinction, ethics asks, is this action right or wrong? Social responsibility asks, how does the company affect society and the environment? So here are more concepts to review. Identify the major areas of social responsibility for international business. This asks, what responsibilities do multinational companies have besides making profits? Major areas include avoiding corruption, fraud, bribery, employee welfare, fair wages, and reducing pollution and climate impact. An example here will be a global company that should treat workers fairly in all countries, protect the environment, and support local communities. What are the 4 general approaches a firm can take with regard to social responsibility? So this refers to the different attitudes companies may have towards CSR, or corporate social responsibility. The 4 approaches are obstructionist stance, defensive stance, accommodative stance, and proactive stance. A simple example of obstructionist, a company that hides pollution problems. Defensive would be a company only following environmental laws because it must. Accommodative, a company that responds when communities request cleaner operations. And proactive, a company that voluntarily invests in renewable energy before regulations require it. What is a whistleblower? A whistleblower is a person who reports illegal, unethical, or harmful activities within an organization. The whistleblower may report fraud, corruption, unsafe products, discrimination, or financial misconduct. As an example, an employee that reports a company managers are paying bribes to foreign officials. Why are whistleblowers important? They help protect the public, expose unethical behavior, and increase corporate accountability. However, whistleblowers may also face retaliation, job loss, or workplace pressure. Identify and briefly summarize representative laws and regulations. Examples here would include Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, the UK Bribery Act, and labor laws. Okay, so I want to take a minute to thank all of you for watching through the entire lecture. I hope you all found this lecture to be useful. Take care, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye for now.